In the year 3047, Earth had long since become a thriving hub of civilization, spreading across multiple star systems and establishing colonies on distant planets. Humans were no longer just residents of Earth. They had become a powerful species, feared and respected throughout the galaxy. Over centuries of exploration, humanity had faced incredible dangers: alien creatures, hostile planets, and even wars with other species. But Earth's toughest warriors had survived them all. Through sheer willpower, intelligence, and brute strength, humans had earned their reputation as the toughest species alive. Life on Earth had changed dramatically since the days of simple wars and struggles for survival. Cities were now towering marvels of technology, with floating vehicles zipping through the sky, and massive skyscrapers reaching for the stars. Underneath the glowing lights of this new world, humans had learned to harness the power of space, travel, moving from one star system to the next as easily as their ancestors had once crossed seas. They had encountered all kinds of aliens, some friendly, others not so much. But the one thing that remained clear was that when it came to survival, humans always found a way to win. The message arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning. It came from the far reaches of the galaxy, a place so distant that it took weeks for even the fastest ships to reach. A group of beings, unknown to the humans, had sent a single message to Earth, challenging them to face something that had never been defeated. It was simple, but sent a chill down the spine of every person who heard it. Come, humans, face the galaxy's deadliest beast. If you survive, the stars will bow to your strength. At first, the message was met with skepticism. Who would dare challenge humans, the fiercest of all species? But then came the recordings, the footage of the creature that had supposedly torn apart entire fleets, shattered moons, and left planets in ruins. The more they learned about this beast, the more intrigued they became. It was called Gorath, and the stories surrounding it spoke of its terrifying power and resilience. No creature in the galaxy had ever survived an encounter with it. No species had dared to face it directly, for to do so was to face certain death. But the humans were different. They were not ones to back down from a challenge. From the moment the message was received, leaders, generals, and scientists began discussing their response. The decision was unanimous. They would accept. A team of Earth's finest warriors was selected for the mission. Among them was Captain Rhea, a seasoned soldier known for her calm under pressure and her ability to think on her feet. Alongside her was Dr. Malik, a brilliant scientist who had studied every aspect of survival in hostile environments, including the behavior of alien creatures. Ajax, a cybernetic soldier with enhanced strength and speed, joined them, bringing his unmatched fighting skills to the mission. Sora, a legendary hunter who had tracked and killed some of the most dangerous creatures in the universe, was also part of the team. And finally, Leon, the fastest pilot known to humanity, was chosen to ensure they could escape danger if necessary. The team was assembled, and the preparations began. They knew the odds were against them, but they also understood something else. Humanity had always risen to the challenge. They had survived the impossible before, and they would do it again. As the Titans roar, the ship they would use, lifted. Off from Earth's surface, the crew felt a sense of anticipation that mixed with a healthy dose of fear. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before them, and they knew that in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the creature that awaited them was unlike anything they had ever faced. The journey would be long, but every member of the team shared the same thought. They were ready. For the humans, it wasn't just about surviving the fight with Gorath. It was about proving that Earth's toughest species was, without a doubt, the most resilient and formidable in the entire galaxy. The challenge had been accepted, and now there was no turning back. They were heading into the unknown, where danger lurked at every turn, but they were determined to face it head-on. The legend of Gorath would either be their greatest victory or their final defeat. Either way, they were going to make history. The journey to Vornar was long and filled with a tense, quiet anticipation. As the Titan's roar cut through the cold vacuum of space, the 5 human warriors sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Captain Rhea stood at the helm, her fingers hovering over the control panels, eyes scanning the blinking lights and shifting data. She had led many missions before, but this one felt different. This wasn't just another assignment. It was a battle for survival, a test of everything humanity had fought for over centuries. The team was prepared, but even they could not predict what awaited them on the distant planet. Dr. Malik, always the strategist, sat in the back, poring over the data streams they had received from the alien message. He was fascinated by the creature's biology, its behavior, and the reports of its destructive power. But no amount of research could prepare him for what he might face on Vornar. His mind raced with possibilities. Could they outsmart the beast? Or would brute force be their only option? He knew that if Gorath truly was as powerful as described, it might take everything they had just to stay alive. Ajax was seated next to him, his mechanical limbs clicking as he inspected his weapons. Unlike the others, he wasn't concerned about the creature's strength. His cybernetic enhancements made him a nearly unstoppable force. He was built for combat, his body enhanced beyond human limits. If it came down to a fight, Ajax would be more than ready. But even he understood that it wouldn't be enough to simply be stronger. Tactics and strategy would be just as important. Sora, the skilled hunter, stared out of the ship's window, watching the stars blur as they moved deeper into space. She had faced wild creatures and deadly beasts before, but nothing like this. Her instincts told her to be cautious. There was something about the way the alien message described Gorath that made her uneasy. It wasn't just the size of the beast or its strength. It was the way it seemed to have an almost supernatural aura, an unshakable presence. She wasn't afraid of death, but she knew this would be a fight like no other. Leon, the ship's pilot, sat at the controls, his fingers moving quickly over the navigation system. He had one job: get them there and get them out if things went wrong. His reputation as the fastest pilot in the galaxy wasn't just about speed. It was about precision and reflexes. He had to be able to think on his feet, react faster than anyone else, and make sure that the Titan's roar could navigate through whatever danger lay ahead. With every passing minute, the unease among the crew grew. What were they about to face? What kind of monster could terrorize the galaxy so thoroughly? He couldn't shake the feeling that the mission had already begun, and the real battle wouldn't be with Gorath, but with the unknown. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the ship approached Vornar. The planet loomed ahead, dark and foreboding, its surface covered in jagged mountain ranges and thick forests. The sky above was an unnatural shade of red, swirling with clouds that seemed to move in strange patterns. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, the crew could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. The planet's surface was hostile, the air thick with an odd mix of chemicals and the constant sound of distant thunder. The crew knew they had no choice but to land and face what awaited them. As the ship touched down, the ramp lowered, revealing the alien figures waiting for them. They were tall, their bodies slim, and their skin a pale shade of blue. Their eyes glowed softly, casting an eerie light in the dim surroundings. One stepped forward, its voice deep and calm as it spoke in a language that the ship's translator system quickly processed. "You have come to face the beast," it said. "Few have dared to do so before. None have survived." The alien's words were chilling, but it wasn't the words themselves that made the crew uneasy. It was the way they were spoken, as if they had already accepted the inevitable. The creature's eyes seemed to study them, calculating, weighing their worth. The leader motioned toward a massive steel gate that loomed in the distance, and the crew followed, their weapons at the ready. What lay beyond that gate, they knew, was the creature they had come to defeat. But none of them could have anticipated the enormity of the challenge ahead. The air was thick with tension as they walked forward, each step bringing them closer to the moment of truth. Would they defeat Gorath? Or would they become another lost chapter in the galaxy's history of failed challengers? The answer lay beyond the gate, and there was no turning back now. The moment the gate to Gorath's domain opened, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over the crew of the Titan's roar. The steel doors groaned as they moved aside, revealing the creature's lair. A heavy, unnatural fog clung to the ground, swirling around their boots like a living thing. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the occasional rumble of thunder echoing from the distant storm clouds above. As the humans stepped into the vast clearing, the planet's eerie red sky loomed above them. In the distance, shadows moved, dark shapes far too large to belong to any ordinary animal. And then, they saw it. Gorath stood in the center of a massive, desolate field, its colossal form blocking the horizon. The beast towered over them, its massive frame covered in scales as black as the void, each one shimmering with a menacing sheen under the crimson sky. Its eyes were a bright, glowing red, and they seemed to burn with an ancient fury, like flames that would never die. The creature's jaws were enormous, capable of snapping through entire starships, and its claws, as thick as tree trunks, dragged against the ground, leaving deep gouges. With every breath, the ground trembled, and the air seemed to grow heavier, as though the very presence of Gorath was too much for the planet to bear. Rhea's eyes scanned the beast. Every detail of its terrifying form burned into her mind. This wasn't just a creature of muscle and fury. It was a force of nature, an embodiment of destruction itself. But Rhea's instincts, honed through years of military service, kept her calm. She gestured to the team, signaling for them to spread out. They needed a plan, and fast. Ajax's powerful form moved toward the creature, his mechanical limbs whirring as he adjusted his weapons. The cyborg's enhanced body would give him an edge in strength, but even he had to know that sheer force alone wouldn't bring down something like this. Sora, ever the tracker, studied the beast's movements, watching its every step with the focus of a hunter. She noted the way it moved, its powerful tail swinging slowly behind it, its head low, surveying the intruders with cold, predatory eyes. Sora whispered under her breath, analyzing its behavior. "It's not charging yet. It's toying with us," she said, her voice tense but controlled. Her eyes never left the beast. If it was testing them, she knew the real fight hadn't even begun. Dr. Malik stood off to the side, his mind already working overtime, analyzing the environment, trying to understand Gorath's physiology. The beast was a biological enigma, its size and strength seemingly beyond anything he'd ever studied. His fingers twitched as he read the scans on his portable device. There was no sign of weakness, no glaring vulnerability that they could exploit. His best guess was that Gorath's body had adapted to withstand any weapon they could throw at it, and that meant a direct assault would be costly. Leon, the pilot, remained by the ship, ready to take flight at a moment's notice. He had only one job: to ensure their escape if the plan went south. His eyes darted between the team and the beast, his fingers ready to activate the thrusters and pull them away. Every second they spent on the planet's surface brought them closer to facing an unstoppable force. He didn't want to think about the worst-case scenario, but the feeling of impending doom was hard to shake. With the crew in position, Rhea gave a signal, and the battle began. Leon flew the ship low, firing high-powered lasers at the beast, trying to get its attention. The lasers hit the creature's thick hide, but they barely left a mark. Gorath turned, its massive eyes narrowing, It let out a deafening roar that sent vibrations through the ground, shaking the very air around them. With a speed that defied its size, the beast charged toward the ship, its claws tearing into the earth with each step. The ship lifted higher, dodging the creature's swipes, but Gorath was relentless. It followed, leaping with terrifying agility, its massive jaws snapping inches from the ship's hull. Ajax moved in, smashing his hammer into the ground, hoping to draw Gorath's attention. Away from the ship, the beast let out another roar, its fury building as it turned toward Ajax. The cyborg swung his hammer, landing a solid blow against Gorath's side, but the monster barely flinched. It retaliated by swatting him aside with its tail, sending Ajax flying through the air, crashing into a nearby rock. He staggered to his feet, battered but undeterred. The creature was tough. Too tough for any direct assault. Meanwhile, Sora and Dr. Malik stayed back, analyzing the situation. There had to be a weakness, something they hadn't seen yet. As the beast raged against their attempts to hurt it, Sora's instincts kicked in. She noticed that the beast seemed to slow near the mist that covered the ground. The mists, thick and choking, didn't just obscure vision, they seemed to affect the creature, dampening its movements. A plan started to form in her mind. They had to lure Gorath into the mist. If they could weaken it just enough, they might stand a chance. With their next move clear, they prepared to execute the next phase of their plan. One that would either defeat the beast or spell the end of humanity's toughest challenge. But as they braced themselves, they knew this wasn't going to be easy. Gorath was relentless, and the team was about to face their hardest fight yet. The battle raged on, and every second seemed like an eternity. Rhea's heart pounded as she watched Gorath tear through the air, its enormous claws reaching for Ajax, who was struggling to regain his footing. The ship hovered precariously, its engines roaring as Leon skillfully dodged the creature's massive swipes, narrowly avoiding a deadly hit. The air was thick with tension, the team's every move dictated by the beast's unpredictable nature. Sora's instincts were on high alert, but she knew they couldn't keep dodging forever. Time was running out. The plan to lure Gorath into the mist had to work, or everything they had fought for would be lost. Sora signaled to Rhea, who nodded, understanding the urgency. The ship descended slightly, just enough to give them room to maneuver. Gorath's focus shifted momentarily, distracted by the sudden change in position. Sora sprinted toward the fog, hoping the creature's instinct to follow prey would lead it right into the mist. She ran through the thickening fog, her mind racing with calculations. If they could get Gorath deep into the mist, they might finally see a chink in its armor. Meanwhile, Dr. Malik studied the beast's every move, analyzing its behavior and searching for a weak point in the monster's otherwise impenetrable defense. His thoughts were interrupted when a sudden roar from Gorath echoed through the air, making the ground shake. The creature had noticed Sora. With terrifying speed, it barreled toward her, its jaws snapping as it sought to crush the hunter beneath its massive weight. Sora's heart raced, but she kept running, knowing that this was their only shot. She was fast, but Gorath was faster. The beast lunged, and for a moment it seemed like the end. Just as the creature's teeth were about to sink into Sora's flesh, a blinding flash of light pierced the air. Ajax, now fully recovered from the blow he had taken earlier, stood tall, with his weapon raised high. His cybernetic body had adapted quickly, and he wasn't about to let his teammates die without a fight. With a roar of his own, Ajax fired a barrage of energy blasts at Gorath's face. The beams struck the creature's eyes, causing it to recoil in pain. The massive beast staggered backward, momentarily stunned by the attack. Sora seized the opportunity, darting into the mist, just as Gorath's attention shifted to the new threat. The fog thickened around them as Sora, with precise movements, led Gorath deeper into the mists. The air became dense, and visibility shrank, but this was exactly what they needed. Dr. Malik had been right. The mist was the key. As the creature moved deeper, its movement slowed, as though the mist was sapping its energy. The team quickly regrouped, positioning themselves on higher ground, knowing the time to strike was drawing near. The mist had clouded Gorath's senses, and for the first time in this fight, it appeared vulnerable. They weren't sure if it was exhaustion or the strange properties of the fog, but the beast wasn't nearly as agile as it had been before. Rhea wasted no time. She ordered Leon to get the ship into position. The next phase was critical. They had only one shot at this. The crew had studied Gorath's movements, and they had discovered a critical flaw: its underbelly. Although its scales were tough, there was a small, unprotected section beneath its body. This was their moment. Leon skillfully maneuvered the ship, getting it low enough for Ajax and Sora to execute their plan. With synchronized precision, Ajax charged at Gorath, using his enhanced strength to distract it while Sora moved in closer, preparing to strike the beast in the vulnerable spot. The ship hovered nearby, ready to provide cover if needed, while the team prepared for the final push. Ajax, with his mechanical strength, engaged Gorath head-on, delivering powerful blows that sent shockwaves through the air. The creature's roars filled the mist, but it was losing focus, its massive form growing sluggish. Sora sprinted around, the beast, her feet light on the uneven terrain, before leaping toward its underbelly. With a single precise strike, she plunged her weapon into the beast's soft, exposed area. The sound of the weapon penetrating Gorath's flesh was followed by a deafening scream from the creature, echoing across the field like a cry of agony. Blood, dark and thick, oozed from the wound as the massive beast writhed in pain. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. The ground trembled as Gorath struggled to stay upright, its once unshakable might faltering. The team watched in disbelief, realizing that their plan had worked. Gorath's strength was no longer its own. The beast was dying, and the fight was nearly over. But as the creature's body buckled and its massive form collapsed, Rhea's heart skipped a beat. A new threat had appeared, something far more terrifying than they could have ever anticipated. From the shadows of the mist, a new figure emerged, its eyes glowing with the same fiery rage. The battle was not over yet. They had defeated Gorath, but what lay ahead would challenge them in ways they could never have prepared for. The galaxy's deadliest beast had been vanquished, but its master was just beginning to make its presence known. The moment Gorath's massive body crumpled to the ground, the air seemed to change, thick with a sense of foreboding. Rhea and her team stood frozen for a moment, still processing the beast's fall. It had been a hard-fought victory, but the eerie silence that followed Gorath's death felt wrong, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The team exchanged uneasy glances, knowing that something wasn't right. Despite their success in bringing down the galaxy's deadliest predator, the feeling of dread intensified with every passing second. Then, the ground shook again. This time, it wasn't the result of a beast's roar. It was something far more unsettling, something deep beneath them. The fog swirled violently around them, as though the planet itself was shifting, reacting to an unseen force. A figure emerged from the dense mist. At first, it was nothing more than a shadow, a silhouette against the crimson sky. But as it stepped forward, it became clear that it wasn't just another creature. This was something different, something far worse than Gorath. The being towered above them, its form shrouded in dark armor that glimmered ominously. Its eyes, glowing with an intense red light, fixed on the team with a gaze so cold it sent shivers down their spines. The air grew colder, and the team instinctively stepped back, their weapons ready, but their hands trembled with uncertainty. Rhea didn't need to say anything. She could feel it too, the presence of something ancient, powerful, and utterly alien. The figure in front of them wasn't just a beast. It was a hunter, the master of Gorath, a creature that had lived for centuries, ruling over the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Its voice, when it spoke, was deep and gravelly, like the sound of rocks grinding together. "You've slain my guardian," the figure said, its voice resonating through the mist. "But that victory was nothing more than a fleeting moment. You cannot defeat what has existed for eons." Ajax, his mechanical limbs still crackling with energy, stepped forward, but Rhea held up a hand to stop him. She knew this was no time for reckless action. The figure before them was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't just a creature. It was something older, far more dangerous, and it exuded an aura of immense power. The team's weapons, their technology, their tactics, they meant nothing against something like this. The battle against Gorath had been a test, a mere prelude to what was to come. And now, the true fight was about to begin. Sora's eyes narrowed as she studied the creature, trying to gauge its intentions. It moved with the grace of a predator, each step deliberate, as though it was savoring the moment. There was no fear in its eyes, no sign of hesitation. It was simply waiting for them to make their move. Dr. Malik, still analyzing the situation, felt a wave of dread wash over him. The creature's physiology was beyond anything his science had ever encountered. It wasn't just alive, it was something more. Something that transcended the laws of biology. Its very presence felt unnatural, as if the rules of the universe bent and twisted around it. Leon, hovering nearby in the ship, observed from a distance. His hand hovered over the controls, ready to take action at the first sign of trouble. But he knew that if they were going to survive this, they needed a plan. Something more than brute force. They had to outsmart it. But how? Every step they had taken up until now had led them to this point. But this creature was different. It wasn't just stronger or faster. It was older, wiser, and far more dangerous than anything they had ever faced. The figure in front of them continued to speak, its words slow and deliberate, as if savoring the fear it could see in their eyes. "You think you can defeat me? I have walked this galaxy for longer than your species has existed. I have slain kings, destroyed civilizations, and brought entire worlds to their knees. And you—" The creature's eyes flared with crimson light. "You are nothing more than a fleeting moment, a brief flicker in the endless dark." Rhea's grip tightened around her weapon. They couldn't run. They couldn't hide. The only choice they had was to stand and fight. But even with their superior technology and advanced training, they knew that facing this creature head-on would be a suicide mission. It was more than just a fight for survival. It was a test of humanity's will to exist in a universe full of ancient and unimaginable threats. The team shared one last glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They would face this challenge together, no matter the odds. But as they prepared for the inevitable battle, the sense of helplessness lingered in the air. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the very future of humanity. And the stakes had never been higher. The true test had only just begun. The air was thick with tension, every heartbeat amplified in the stillness that followed the creature's chilling words. Rhea's mind raced as she sized up their options. The alien figure standing before them was a living nightmare, a force beyond comprehension, a predator that had existed for millennia. Nothing they had faced so far could compare to this, and yet there was no time for fear. The moment for hesitation had passed. This was humanity's trial, its final stand against an enemy so ancient and terrifying it seemed to exist outside of time itself. As the team readied themselves for the fight, the creature's red eyes glowed brighter, almost mocking their preparations. Its every movement sent waves of dread through the air, as though its very presence warped the world around it. It wasn't simply a hunter, it was a destroyer, a force of nature that had toppled empires, eradicated species, and ruled the galaxy from the shadows. Rhea's thoughts were interrupted when the figure spoke again, its voice now tinged with a cold amusement. "You think you can stop me? I have seen empires crumble beneath my feet. You are nothing but children in the face of an eternal predator." Its words sent chills down her spine, but Rhea forced herself to remain calm. This wasn't about power. It was about outsmarting the creature. The team had come this far, and they wouldn't let fear or despair take over now. The creature moved again, its speed unnerving. It was on them in an instant, its long limbs slicing through the air as it prepared to strike. But Rhea had anticipated this. She signaled to Ajax, who was already charging forward, his cybernetic body moving with incredible speed and precision. He engaged the creature head-on, drawing its attention away from the rest of the team. The massive alien responded with a guttural growl, its eyes narrowing as it focused on its new prey. Ajax, though formidable, was no match for the creature's strength and speed. The alien's claws slashed at him, sending him crashing to the ground, but Ajax was quick to recover, his enhanced limbs giving him the advantage in a hand-to-hand confrontation. Sora, taking advantage of the distraction, darted into the shadows, silently moving through the mist. She knew this battle was about more than just strength. It was about finding weaknesses, exploiting openings. The alien was powerful, but it wasn't invincible. She'd seen the way it reacted to certain attacks, the way it recoiled when hit, in the right spots. The mist was thickening, and with it, her hope. The creature's senses were being dulled, and it was becoming more erratic, more vulnerable. It wasn't immune to its surroundings. As the team's tactical genius, Dr. Malik was the next to act. He had been quietly analyzing the alien's behavior, noting its reliance on intimidation and sheer power. But even the most powerful predator could be caught off guard. He activated the ship's auxiliary systems, releasing a series of sonic pulses designed to disrupt the creature's heightened senses. The alien stumbled back, momentarily disoriented, and that was all the opening they needed. Sora emerged from the mist like a shadow, moving with deadly precision. She struck at the creature's flank, her blade sinking deep into its armored hide. The creature howled in fury, but it was too late. The team had found its weakness. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The alien reeled, its roars echoing through the mist as it swiped at the attackers. But despite its power, it was slowing. Its immense form staggered, and for the first time, the team saw it falter. Rhea's heart raced, but she knew they couldn't stop now. This was their one chance, and they had to finish it. With synchronized precision, Leon maneuvered the ship, lowering it to an optimal position. The team quickly moved into position, each member playing their part in the final assault. Ajax, his body battered but unyielding, charged again, this time aiming for the creature's exposed underbelly. Sora, moving like lightning, darted in and out of the mist, distracting the creature and keeping it off balance. Dr. Malik from a distance fired a final pulse of sonic energy, disorienting the beast further. And then, with one final, coordinated strike, Rhea lunged forward, plunging a high-energy blade into the creature's chest. The creature's roar reached a deafening pitch, but it was cut short as its massive body shuddered, its life force draining away. It collapsed to the ground with a tremendous crash, sending tremors through the planet's surface. The battle was over. The team stood in stunned silence, their weapons still raised, ready for any last-minute retaliation. But the alien figure lay motionless, defeated. The mist, which had once felt like an oppressive force, now seemed to lighten. The creature was no longer a threat, its reign of terror at an end. But the victory was bittersweet. The team knew that they had faced something beyond their understanding, something that should never have existed in the galaxy. Humanity had triumphed, but the cost was unknown. The mist began to dissipate, and as it lifted, the team couldn't shake the feeling that their fight had only just begun. There were more challenges ahead, more unknowns to face. But for now, they had won. And that was enough to hold on to, for the moment.